Summer Maelstrom by Kitsune Rose 16, Chapter 7, Cookies. What do you think she wanted with him? Sakura asked as the team minus Naruto left Tsunade's office. Who knows? Kakashi shrugged, his nose still in his book. I'm sure it's important if she asks the rest of us to leave. Still, if Naruto or Lady Tsunade wants us to know, then they will tell us later. He cut her off. Just forget about it for now. Summer stayed back a bit and watched without a comment. She didn't bother thinking about what was going on in the office simply because she would be made aware of it later. After being Naruto's best friend for 6 years, his teammate for four, and girlfriend for one, she knew that he wouldn't keep information from his friends, meaning his team at Beacon. Even if that information could emotionally harm one of them, he would simply tell them in the most blunt and gentle way possible. It was actually quite funny sometimes, now that she thought about it. I think, Summer. Sakura's voice cut into her thoughts, so she turned to the pink kid questionably. I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please? She asked, slightly sheepish. Sakura rolled her eyes. I asked what you thought they are doing in there. She said again, I don't know. Like Kakashi said, we'll probably find out later. If not, Summer shrugged. Then there's no need for us to know. Sakura seemed shocked. Wait, seriously? You're not the least bit curious? She asked incredulously. Of course I am, the Rose replied simply, but I trust him to inform us if it was something truly important. Sakura seemed stoked by this answer, and even Kakashi gave her a small look from over his book. The amount of faith she has in him is quite something, he silently noted. Anyways, Summer continued as they left the tower and entered the streets. She made to go into the opposite direction. I'll see you guys later. I have a little girl that I haven't seen in about a week to attend to. Sakura nodded slowly while Kakashi waved his hand lazily. Sure, sure, go for it. See you later, she shouted over her shoulder, having already moved a fair distance away before disappearing entirely. Kakashi turned back to his other student before sweat dropping at the sight of the pink kid, being off with an air of depression shrouding her. The silver-haired Johnny stared for a moment before retreating back to the solace of Icha Icha and walking casually. Yeah, definitely not handling that fire. She missed you a lot, you know, Jiraiya said as he watched the Summer bounce the giggle blonde toddler in her lap. Naruto too, I'm sure. She picked her up and made faces at Yang, something that the child tried to evaluate with varied forms of success. After a particularly failed attempt, the two fell into a fit of laughter. So, Jiraiya began when the two finally finished giggling. How was your first real fight with an S-rank shinobi? To be honest, I was terrified, she stated truthfully. That's understandable, he replied easily. Not many has the guts to stand up to an S-ranked missing nin and fight them, let alone escape with their life. So be happy that you're alive at all. I know I am, but her hands clenched to the edge of her cloak. I can tell he was holding back a lot, and if that's only a part of his strength, then I shiver at the thought of fighting him fully powered. Could you tell me what happened? Sure, Summer said slowly as she shifted Yang so she could sit more comfortably, though it wasn't so much a fight as it was a one-sided beatdown. Sparks flew as the two-headed spear, Blizzard Rose, clashed into the massive sentient sword. Gritting her teeth, the Summer let loose a barrage of strikes that were invisible to the untrained eye. Kisame grinned as he batted away her attacks with the flat end of his sword before bringing the blade down in an overhand swing. The Rose instantly danced to the side just in time to avoid the blow which destroyed the ice as she had been using as a platform. She then continued to maneuver around the large man as she skillfully spun her spear around her body and swung at his exposed back. However, this was not meant to be as Kisame lashed out with a back kick. Although in motion from her strike, Summer could only hastily throw up a defense that was easily shattered by the strength of the kick and caused her to be tossed back. flying backwards through the air. She grimaced as her forearm throbbed in pain. Despite her aura defending her, she could already feel a bruise forming. Flipping, she conjured up a wall of ice at her feet and landed in a crouch before blasting off in a blur of speed that shattered the ice wall beneath her. Apparently next to her opponent in a swirl of wind, Summer spun and brought the end of Blizzard Rose down on his head. Kisame simply lifted his sword up in response. He blinked, however, when there was no impact. Years of experience caused him to duck as one of the blades of Summer's spear flew overhead, rotating while still staying in a crouch. Kisame swung at the rose's feet as she was still suspended in the air. Summer saw it coming and put the end of Blizzard Rose down to block. The blades connected, and the force was and position she was in caused her to flip upside down. Going with the spin, she swung her spear around her body and managed to nick his cloak. Kisame noticed this and grinned excitedly before striking with a simple, non-lethal jab. Summer, however, felt something was off about the seemingly innocent punch, and when she landed back on her feet, immediately bent back in a 90-degree angle, allowing the strike to sail over her. This looked to be a good call, as right after she had dodged, a shockwave blasted from his fist and dug a trench into the water behind her. The wave continued its path before eventually slamming into a cluster of half-submerged trees and completely unrooted them from the ground. Not having enough time to get at the show of power, Summer moved her arms back and placed her hands on the water beneath her, sending a surge of aura through her body. She flashed to freeze the area around them and captured Kisame's feet in a thick coating of ice. Knowing she didn't have much time before he broke free, Summer flipped back onto her feet, moved forward, and delivered a devastating split kick into his chin. A loud crack rang out before Kisame was sent rocketing skyward, with the frozen platform crackling as well as the ice coating his feet breaking as well. Kisame grimaced at the air as he rubbed his bruised jaw. The hell, he thought with slight surprise, where did that sudden amount of strength come from? Unknown to the blue swordsman, right before he was kicked, Summer's body was briefly engulfed in crimson flame-like aura before dissipating just as quickly as it came. The rose was not finished with her attack, however, as she slammed a hand to the ground, causing a half-dozen of large razor-sharp pillars to launch out of water with blurred speed straight to the still suspended Kisame. The airborne man deflected three of the spikes to the side, but was stopped by the remaining half appearing in a cross in front of him. Kisame smirked before he smacked the last of the pillars to pieces. Although that smirk vanished when Summer appeared among the broken ice, a slow frontward somersault already in motion. The heel dropped and Kizume's body was flung into the water below, causing a massive tower of water to erupt. She dropped down onto Kizume's position like a bomb, spinning like a buzzsaw as she fell through the water, splitting it into two parts as soon as she hit the bottom. Another wave of water went up, this one being much smaller than the other, and it went back instead of up. The wave then immediately halted as it turned to solid ice. When the dust, or in this case water, settled around the two fighters, Summer could be seen in a crouching below Kisame with one of the blades of Blizzard Rose touching ice below his feet. She took a step back and with one more shot of effort split the man in half at the waist. There was a moment of silence as Kisame's body swayed slightly before falling to two separate sides. When the two parts fell, there was the sound of water splashing into more water. Wait, water? Summer's eyes widened as the body transformed into water and mixed back into the small lake. Looking around wildly, she attempted to catch a glimpse of the man. However, this proved to be fruitless, that is, until she saw a steadily increasing shadow form at her feet. Her head snapped up and cursed loudly. Kisame was above her, with naught but a few feet of space between them and her and had Samehada poised to strike. Shit, no time to dodge. I got to try to block. The crimson aura from before returned, this time being more static, like in its movement. It engulfed the entirety of her body from head to toe, and she shifted into a more solid stance, leaning forward slightly while solidifying ice around her feet and bringing Blizzard Rose up above her. This process was done in a matter of a few seconds and was just in time to defend against Kisame as he dropped his massive sword down on her form. The deafening clang rang out and a visible shockwave exploded from the two at the point of contact. Kisame seemed slightly surprised that the rose had managed to block him before he grinned, amusement gleaming in his eyes, and put more pressure into his strike. The ice under Summer's feet cracked and began to crumble from the force as his sword slowly pushed under her spear. Finally, Kisame let out more surge of strength and shattered her defenses. The bandaged blade of Samehada tapped against the upper part of her back before, in a way reminiscent to the technique used by Tsunade and Sakura, released the chakra through his sword. The moment it touched her, however, this was only a crude copy of the fifth Hokage's monstrous strength, so instead of being turned to paste, most of the power was sent awry, causing the ice below them to completely shatter into pieces and strong gusts of wind to blow across the battlefield. Although the leftover power was still enough to blast away the rose, Summer's body suddenly vanished and reappeared, skipping over the surface of the lake, causing small explosions of water to rise from each impact. She eventually came to a painful stop when she collided with a large boulder, making an imprint of her form in the large rock. After her body, her crimson aura flickered and died, showing that she had finally reached her energy limits. She coughed painfully as her breath rattled in her chest and some blood dribbled down her chin. She tried to move, but found that she was far too into the rock to get free, and too exhausted to try anything else. She did, however, manage to keep her grip on Blizzard Rose, but even that was weakened. A low chuckle pulled her attention away from her self-analysis. Looking through half-lidded eyes, Summer glared at Kisame as Kisame walked slowly over to her with his sword resting on his shoulder. "Well, I didn't think you'd last this long, girlie. The only ones who managed to last as long as you have were my old partner and leader, Sama." He praised, his cocky smirk never leaving his face. "Congratulations, you get to die with honor." Summer stayed silent, but the glare, despite her efforts, turned slightly fearful as he drew closer. He stopped when he got right in front of her. He hefted his sword and swung with the full intention to kill. "Stop!" An unknown voice said clearly, even if it was a bit low in tone. The blade came to a stop, barely grazing the skin on her cheeks and drawing blood. The swordsman seemed frozen for a moment before he let out a sigh. "Seems playtime is over." He reholstered Samehada and turned away. "You got lucky this time, girlie. I won't kill you right now, but know this: the next time we cross blades in battle, only one will leave with their lives." And with those ominous words, he disappeared in a swirl of water, leaving the frozen rose behind. Afterwards, I managed to pull myself out of the rock and make my way to the rest of the team, but when I got there, the rest had already gotten away. Summer finished. Jiraiya, who had been listening to her story in silence, let out a low hum. "Hmm, it seems to me that you managed to earn his respect." She gave him a confused look. "Respect?" she parroted. "How so?" "Heck if I know." The sage shrugged. "I don't know how that man's mind works. Maybe you impressed him with your prowess in using Blizzard Rose." "Oh," Summer replied simply, "but that still doesn't explain his last words or the voice. He probably saw some potential in you. If there's a chance you could prove a better challenge later, then he is most likely giving you the opportunity to improve yourself. And that voice could be this leader Sama he spoke of before. But why would he allow someone to get better and allow them the chance to possibly defeat him?" "Who knows?" Jiraiya shrugged again. "Maybe he's a battle junkie or something. Just be glad that you were given the opportunity to continue living." I'm happy. I guess just means I'll have to train more and get stronger for next time. Summer pounded a fist into her open hand, something that Yang copied and seemed to like as she then proceeded to repeat this action several more times. Jiraiya chuckled at the two's antics. With that attitude, I'm sure you'll get stronger in no time, he said, getting a grateful smile from the rose. The two then fell into relatively peaceful silence. So how was Jiang? Summer asked suddenly. She didn't cause any trouble, did she? No. Summer gave him a look that caused him to freeze involuntarily. What happened? Well, you see, I may or may not have brought her to a bathhouse. He stumbled out with a slight squeak in the end. The rose's glare turned downright terrifying as she asked, "And then?" Nothing too crazy," Jiraiya said hurriedly. "I just got caught peeping, and before I got beat up like I usually do, Yang stopped them with her cuteness." Summer nodded slowly with an iron-like calmness. "So you only used her as a way to get yourself out of trouble?" The white-haired sage nodded frantically. She let out a long breath and closed her eyes. "Okay, I can understand that." Jiraiya slumped into his chair in relief. "I'm glad you see it my Gah!" he exclaimed in pain as a foot slammed in his head into the ground. "As if!" Summer shouted, with repeatedly stomping on the form of the toad sage. "Like hell I'd be okay with that, you pervert!" "Wait! Ow! Stop! Aren't you supposed to be the gentle and nice one?" "No mercy!" Jiraiya cried, a waterfall of tears, as he continued to get pounded into the floor. He reached out painfully to the blond toddler sitting on the couch watching. "Help me, Yang!" he pleaded. Yang simply stared for a moment before pointing a small finger and declaring with perfect clarity, "Pervert!" Instantly, to Jiraiya, the world froze, and the sound of glass breaking was heard as his body turned white and fell to pieces. Summer halted her attack and stared at the pitiful form of the supposedly legendary Sanin. She was about to kick him again, just for the hell of it, but stopped when a sudden heavenly scent was inhaled through her nostrils. Her silver eyes slowly grew to large proportions, and drool began seeping out of her mouth. In an instant she vanished out of the apartment, leaving a confused Yang and still down Jiraiya. There was a moment of silence before it was interrupted when Summer reappeared, grabbing Yang, and swept her right back out the door, which was closed with a slam. Jiraiya's broken form remained staying on the floor for a moment before dispersing into a cloud of smoke. Now, in her and Naruto's shared apartment, Summer tracked down the enticing scent in an animal-like fashion. Eyes closed and nostrils flaring, she followed the smell until she reached the kitchen area. She came upon a large cooking sheet sitting on top of the stove. Opening her eyes, stars formed at the sight of 2 dozen freshly baked cookies. Each of the delicious treats had an amusing plain brown look to them, with small chocolate chips scattered about, as if not much care was put into it. But Summer knew better. Slowly, almost reverently, she picked one up and brought it to her mouth. As she took a small bite, immediately the flavor exploded across her taste buds as the mix between chocolate and strawberries collided before somehow managing to blend perfectly. If she were to glance at the partly eaten cookie, she would have seen the red strawberry filling on the verge of falling out. However, she did not look and instead began to devour it. What came next would go down as the most one-sided massacre in all of cookie history, as Summer systematically destroyed the small treats. She continued until her hand reached out for another one, only to hit metal. Coming out of her cookie daze, she glanced at the tray in confusion before a look of horror crossed her features. "No!" she cried dramatically as she fell to her knees. "I did it again!" Tears similar to the ones Jiraiya had earlier cascaded down her face. She would have continued to do so if not for the sheet of paper falling on top of her head. Grasping at it, she stared at the paper with bleary eyes. "Hope you enjoyed your cookies. I knew you would eat them all in one go, so I only set out the ones on the tray. I made sure I made more, but they are hidden until I can take them out myself. There are, however, two that I'll give you the location of. Inside the dresser, besides my bed, is a small plate with two cookies on it. Before you go, these are not for you, they are for Yang. If you eat them, I will not make you any more for the rest of the month. Anyways, I hope you enjoy my apology treats. P.S. If you're wondering how I managed to make days so fast, then all I have to say is shadow clones are quite useful outside of fighting. At the bottom of the page was a chibi Naruto grinning while giving her a peace sign. Summer stared blankly at the paper. "Ah, come on!" she exclaimed suddenly. "Why'd you have to hide them?" Her eyes suddenly grew wide in realization. "Wait, what about the ones in the dresser? I could get those." Her head shook quietly. "No, no, no, no. Those are for Yang, and if I eat them, Naruto might not make me any more for the next month." Munch, munch. The sound of chewing brought her out of her hysterics. Turning her head in an owl-like fashion, Summer came upon the sight of the small blonde girl happily eating two large cookies with a large smile on her face. "Papa's cookies!" Yang mumbled excitedly around the food in her mouth. A strained voice appeared on Summer's face. "Uh-huh, those are definitely Papa's cookies," she sighed in defeat. "Guess I'll just have to wait until Tsunade gets done talking with Naruto." She rubbed her head in frustration. How long will that take? I'm gonna die if I have to wait any longer."